So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about what you're missing out on your MarTech stack. This is going to be done as CXL Institute and Effin Amazing. We've teamed up to basically create this awesome webinar for you today. But let me tell you a little bit about me before we get started. Now, my name is Dan McGaugh. I'm the CEO founder of Effin Amazing. We're a MarTech agency that helps a lot of companies get data-driven with analytics. We build out the MarTech stack. We do a lot of integrations and help people get APIs configured, understand what their data pipeline is going to be, their data schemas. And then we also help set up a lot of the marketing automation and sales automation so their team can do a lot more while also doing a lot less. We've been very fortunate in the 4 years that we've been around. We've worked with everybody from Club Med to Maserati to companies like Eventbrite, but we even work with smaller companies and startups like RealThread, who I'll be talking about today, and then as well as companies like, let's say, Infer, which was recently acquired, Wistia, who's super awesome, great team there. Now, why am I the right guy to talk about this other than the fact that I started this agency? Well, before this, I was actually the head of marketing at Kissmetrics. So I took over for Neil Patel there. Great guy, I really liked him, but I got to take over the reins and run that beast and really got to turn the metrics up and to the right. So 300% increase in leads, 50% increase in traffic. Can't talk about revenue numbers because it's against confidentiality agreements, but definitely did some really awesome stuff. Before that as well, though, I was also the head of marketing at another company called CodeSchool.com. So while working at Code School, I was surrounded by engineers. My job was to sell an online education product for developers to up their game, basically. So a lot of online education for devs. Now, I was the only marketer for a long time there, and I really had to learn a lot about the tech space and APIs and Ruby on Rails and JavaScript and all of these other technologies. So the cross between the fact that I'm already a nerd and I love business and marketing, and then having to get super deep into tech, and then even joining the team at Kissmetrics, I'm super technical, and I love dealing with marketing stuff, and I love helping people build pretty rad processes to be able to help grow their businesses. So that's a little bit about me. If you ever have any questions, once again, reach out on that chat system like we had talked about. You can also hit me up at Daniel McGaugh on Twitter, and then as well as Dan at Effin Amazing, you can reach out to me there. So margin of error on the zebras was off by 4. I like that. Good transparency there. So now what I also want you to do is go check out the new online course that I'm about to launch. I've been busting my butt making this course. I've spent almost 100-something hours on creating 8 hours of content to help you really be able to rock it when it comes down to the MarTech stack. If you go to the link effinamazing.com/CXL webinar, you'll be able to find it there. But the class actually launches November 13th. And we're going to be talking about how do you create the taxonomy? How do you figure out all of these integrations? Where do you find all the cool tools? And also, like, how do you set up segment? You track your leads and engagement flow. And then how do you hack it all to make sure that you can get shit done? Now, I will be talking about some of those concepts in this webinar today, but I won't be doing it any justice. So let's kind of get started so that way we can rock this out, right? So what we're going to talk about is what you're missing out on your MarTech stack and some of your integrations. Now, let me introduce you to one of my clients. This is a company called RealThread. RealThread is based here in Orlando. They're a custom t-shirt printer that works with a lot of cool brands. They've done t-shirt printing for companies like Envision, Amazon, and a bunch of other companies. But they also work with small startups and apparel companies as well. So they're known for having extremely high quality prints on great t-shirts. So people like Human Unlimited, a large apparel company, does all their printing through them. Now, they're a really cool company, but when they came to us, they basically had one simple goal. How do we increase our new customer conversion rate? Now, these guys are collecting a lot of leads. They're doing a really good job from a marketing aspect, but they wanted to increase basically how they were going to get their new customers. They do a really good job with returning customers, but they needed to make sure that they can convert new ones. Now, with every client we work with, we come in and we do an audit. We look at all the systems, we talk to all the teams, we really take an in-depth look at the company and then write out a really deep strategy. Now, we found some really interesting things when we did their audit. They already had traffic, they already had leads, they were crushing it from a business perspective, they had great customer service, but they had a couple things that if they just kind of changed it a little bit, they could really make a big change in their business. And this is a company that we drove a 51% increase in new orders, a 20% increase in their funnel conversion rate, so a bunch of cool stuff, and we did it through some of these strategies. Now, the first thing that we had to do was create a lead scoring model. Now, the lead scoring model is really important. These guys are collecting thousands of leads a month, but they don't know which ones are good. They don't know which ones are bad. So we had to fix that. Who was a good lead? Who was a bad lead? So the sales rep knew who to talk to. You don't need a sales rep wasting all their time on somebody who's going to buy 5 t-shirts, right? You need the sales reps focused on the people who could buy 5,000 t-shirts. So we had to identify that stuff. Now, the next thing we had to do was start focusing on personalizing those journeys as well. A lot of these people coming into the funnel were getting treated as the same person. They were just, hey, you're Joe. We're going to market to you like Joe. And that's not how their community really is. They had multiple different personas that use their service, but we talked to them all like they were Joe. And they just weren't. They had designers, they had CEOs, they had apparel companies. So we had to create a personalized way that we could communicate with these people. And then last, we noticed that there was a large bit of visibility that they didn't have. They didn't have good reporting, so they couldn't really manage the business. And as they say, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And if you want to manage it, you've got to measure it. So they really had to improve their reporting so they had better visibility into their customer cycle. Now, let's walk through some of the main problems that we saw when we first started working with them. Now, this might not seem like a problem, but people could come to the website and basically order a custom order, right? You could come to the website, you could put in the order, you could actually upload a logo, you could go through the entire buyer process without talking to anybody. Now, the great thing is on the internet, we can track all this stuff. But this is one customer journey that we were able to see, and it wasn't really connected to the rest of them. Now, as people go through this funnel, information is being tracked, things are obviously being done, but we aren't really connecting that to the rest of the funnel. And I'll get into that a little bit more on the next step. Now, the next thing is they had a lot of offline orders. People are coming to the website, they're maybe clicking on a Google ad, coming to the website and they're clicking on, hey, let me just call you, or let me email you, or let me fill out an email and talk to somebody there, or even fill out an intercom chat. Now, you might say like email isn't offline, it's online, and intercom is online. However, because these tools were siloed and weren't connected to the rest of the stack, they might as well have been offline. I couldn't tell that somebody came from a Google ad, came to the website, called in. I had no idea that that happened. I couldn't tell that somebody who came to that intercom chat really came from a retargeting ad. I couldn't tell the person that was emailing me actually came from the Facebook post that we just did about this great savings campaign. I couldn't connect any of those things. Now, the next problem is a good problem to have. They had a lot of leads. So these guys did a really good job with creating these online resources people can download. They gated that content so people would obviously give them their emails. Now, this is great, right? I get emails, I got leads, people are downloading my resources. I'm doing a great job. Well, there's some problems when you think about that stuff. When you collect just an email, you don't really know who that person is. You don't have any information, you don't have much stuff to go on, and you're getting thousands of these downloads, but you don't really have any idea what that person's interested in. Yeah, they may have downloaded this t-shirt design kit, but a lot of people download a t-shirt design kit, not just t-shirt designers, but business owners and HR people and graphic designers that work at big companies. So it was definitely adding a little bit of complication. Now, the next thing is that they were also doing a lot of outbound prospecting. These guys had figured out how to prospect leads online, put those things in the sales loft, add great personalization, and then email out to people. Now, you might be asking, why is this a problem? Well, this was a separate silo of data that we just couldn't see into. And now we had all of these different customer journeys all over the place, and nothing was really unified. So we really had to figure out how we're going to pull that together. Now, the big problem in most companies is that customer data is siloed. Customers are being tracked in different places at different times, and you don't have good visibility into the customer journey. Now, what's interesting is as a business, your number one focus needs to be your customer. However, if you have no idea that customer journey goes through, you can't really optimize their experience. You can't provide them a good customer experience because you're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to drop a lot of balls. Now, this was the stack that we started with when we worked with RealThread. They had Google Tag Manager set up, which I unfortunately don't have on this graph, but they basically pumped all their data into Segment. Segment then pumped into Intercom, which was their marketing automation tool. And then they also pumped some data into Kissmetrics. Now, what's interesting here is you'll notice that basically off to the side, we have Salesforce all by itself. Now, Salesforce was really their true data hub. This is where all of the leads went, all of the contacts went, and this is also going to be where all of the actual orders went. The problem is that the contacts that are coming in through Segment didn't actually wind up in Salesforce. They only wound up in Salesforce if somebody submitted an order. So if somebody went into Intercom, they would have an email list of thousands and thousands of people. But when you looked in Salesforce, there was only hundreds and hundreds of people because that's where the orders were. You also had SalesLoft, which is doing our outbound prospecting, but it lived on its own island. It wasn't connected to anything. So let me explain like a big problem you have. Let's say that I email you and I'm like, what's up, dude? What about, we got Mike, right? Mike, how are you doing? Why don't you order some custom t-shirts? Well, in the email, I have a link to the website. You click on it, you go to the website, and you order 100 shirts. And you're like, cool, this is awesome. Like, I checked out this stuff. You never respond to my email. Maybe you're a millennial. Maybe you're a zennial. I don't know. I don't really like talking to people. It's amazing I'm on these webinars sometimes. You don't talk to that sales rep. You never reach back out to me, but you submitted an order. Well, 4 days later, I send you an email saying, hey, you should order some t-shirts. Here's a $50 discount. Well, Mike, now you're like, wait a second, I just made $1,000 order of t-shirts. Why don't you know this? And I want that discount, but I want it on that order. You can just imagine that this customer journey becomes really, really convoluted. And I like it. Avocado toast. I love avocado toast, by the way. Either way, you can imagine how bad this customer experience can be. And just imagine that you're a person that comes in through the intercom system and you fill out that chat and you're talking to somebody, you get a marketing newsletter and then it tells you to order today. It's one of the nurture sequences. However, you just submitted an order 3 hours ago and that's only tracked in Salesforce because you talked to a sales rep. You can just imagine how these kind of out of sync tools don't really help your organization. Not only do lead scoring, you're not going to be able to personalize those journeys and you're not going to have good reporting. And trust me, every company I work with, when we're done with that and they have great reporting, they make amazing results out of the metrics that they have. I don't teach them all the strategies sometimes, but being able to give them the access to understand how things are going is really going to change the game for you. Now, let's jump forward to what their new stack looks like. Now, their new stack is extremely well integrated. One of the things is we kept Segment because Segment is awesome. Like, love those guys. Definitely let them know if you sign up for the tool and you heard about it from me. But we created a full data pipeline. And one of the things that you'll notice through this is that there is a pipeline that goes from Segment to Clearbit to Autopilot to Salesforce to Amplitude. That is our primary data pipeline. Now, another thing that you'll notice on that is we have also made sure that there is some ways for these tools to sync together. So as an example, you'll see Segment is integrated with Clearbit, but you'll also see Clearbit is able to send data back to Segment, which is really important because any of that data that's sent back to Segment can pass all the way down that data pipeline. So now let me explain what some of these tools are so that way you don't get confused. Segment is a data piping tool. It is a customer data platform where you can send data into it and it distributes it to all of your tools. If you're not familiar, go check it out. But it's kind of like a Zapier, except for mainly for development, and you can pipe a bunch of data into it. You can pipe it into a warehouse. It has over 300 integrations, so you integrate once with it and it goes into the rest of your tools. Now, Segment is our data enrichment project, or not ours, excuse me. Clearbit is a data enrichment company. So as the data flows into Segment, it goes into Clearbit. Clearbit enriches it, sends it back to Segment, and Segment sends it down the pipeline. You also notice we have Autopilot. We replaced Intercom with Autopilot. At the time, Intercom didn't have an integration with Salesforce, and we needed our automation tool to have a very, very good integration with Salesforce. If Salesforce was our data hub and our revenue hub, we needed that to be synced up with all of our automation, so those two tools had to be directly connected together. Now, you also notice Autopilot can pass data back to Segment. This is really important. We'll talk more about this later. Now, as I said, if somebody picked up the phone and called me and they came from a Google ad, right, they came to the website and they called, I had no way to connect those transactions. So you'll notice we added CallRail to this as well. CallRail now allows us to add dynamic phone numbers to the website. So every single session, there's a new number and people are basically able to call that and we can attach that to where they came from. You also notice that we connected SalesLoft with Salesforce, and this was really important. As people are being prospected, we needed them to be sent into Salesforce because if that person then came through the website and ordered, we can automatically convert them from a lead to a contact. We could tell SalesLoft, stop emailing this dude. He's already become a customer. So the sales reps were much, much more effective. You'll also notice that we also started sending all of the data into Amplitude. Now, I used to be the head of marketing at Kissmetrics, and I still use the product almost every single day. But Kissmetrics has a certain view of the world, and Amplitude has a totally different way of looking at data. And I'm not going to get into the details now. If you do have questions about that, ask it in the questions later, and I'll be able to get back to you. But we needed to start using Amplitude to provide our client better reporting. Now, we kept Kissmetrics because it has their historical data. We still use it till this day, but we wanted to make sure that we had both tools so we could have better reporting. You'll also notice that we had Intercom, but we separated it from the stack. We put it in kind of its own world. We connected it to the rest of the stack using Zapier. And the reason for this is the fact that any contact that you put inside of Intercom, it costs you money. And we didn't need every single person coming to the website to now wind up in Intercom. We only were going to use Intercom for the live chat. So to make sure that we didn't run up our cost and spend a ton of money on two automation tools, we took Intercom, we added it directly to the site using their JavaScript. We then made it so if any new leads came in Intercom, those are sent to Zapier. Zapier would then send them to Autopilot. Autopilot would then make sure they wind up in Salesforce. And as you can see, Autopilot will make sure that they wound up in Segment, make sure they got enriched through Clearbit. Clearbit would send the data back through. That all got enriched in Autopilot, which we'll talk about later. Got enriched in Salesforce, got sent into Amplitude and Kissmetrics. So you can see how all of these silos were broken down and made so that we could have a consistent customer profile so we can create the best customer journey as possible. Now, let's keep moving on, right? So we talked about the lead scoring. So that was a major goal that we need to do. They already had a ton of leads, so we need to take these thousands of prospects and turn them into MQLs. Now, what is an MQL? A marketing qualified lead. That means that marketing is like, hey, this guy's perfect, we should talk to them. Now, these aren't always accepted. Marketing sends these leads to sales reps review them, usually an SDR. This SDR has the right to reject them. But we need to make sure that the SDRs actually had something to review, right? We wanted to make it so that the guy that ordered 10 t-shirts would kind of go self-service, while the guy that's going to order 10,000 kind of bubble to the top. So really important. Now, when you think about a lead scoring model, first you have to start out with a plan. And your lead scoring model needs to be focused on two primary things: identity attributes and behavior attributes. You obviously want to track the behavior. They visited the builder, they uploaded their logo, did they upload their logo 6 times? How many times did they view a product on the website? Did they end up saving their order? Things like that. And these will all have their individual points. So as you can see, the download resource gave 10 points. Visited the builder gave you another 10 points. Our threshold with them was 150 points. So once you hit 150, you became an MQL, you would then get reviewed. Now, this is obviously helpful because we can track the behavior on the website. But we also have to look at the identity attributes. Because I'm using Clearbit now, even when somebody gives me their email, I can enrich that with their company, their title, how much revenue does that company do, the number of Twitter followers. So we also have to look at those identity attributes. One, what was their title? Are they a VP, designer, marketer, clothing, fashion? These would get you a plus of 20 points. Now, if you had a big company, so doing more than $1 million a year, we would give you plus 40 points. Because if you're doing more than $1 million a year, you can afford a $5,000 t-shirt order. We also looked at the company Twitter followers. How big of a company following do they have? Because obviously with a big following, you may be an apparel company, right? Kind of match 1-to-1. Also an employee range and amount raised, right? Amazon has raised a ton of money, right? So we want to make sure that we can identify those types of companies. Now, once you've come up with your lead scoring, you obviously need a way to track all this stuff. So let me show you a little bit about how we did the behavior tracking. Now, on one side of the screen, you're going to see basically realthread.com open up. On the bottom, you'll notice it says Tag Manager. Now, a tool I didn't mention in the stack, which I don't need to because you should all already have Tag Manager. Basically, Tag Manager, you can add it to your site, add JavaScript to it. You no longer need a developer. Now, on other side of the screen, you can see that I have Segment. Segment is our data piping tool. So as the user is going through the site, we have configured different events and created a taxonomy so we can track what these things are. So as an example, the user selects a color or adds the order to their cart. You'll notice that this is tracked in real time inside of Segment. And this is really powerful because one, Clearbit makes this, or excuse me, Google Tag Manager makes this very easy. And then Segment actually will pipe all of this data downstream to other tools. Now, you may not be a developer, you may have one available to you, or you may need some help doing these integrations, but it is very, very important that you do this because as somebody is filling out your funnel and typing in the information, uploading their artwork like they're doing in this example, we can track all of that and we can see those behavior attributes, give them scores and identify good customers, but also collect important information like their names, their emails, their phone numbers. These are all going to be things we want to track. Now, I talked about how Clearbit would enrich this stuff. So what would happen is, as somebody is going to the website, let's say that I'm going to go download one of their t-shirt resources. I just enter in an email. So this is a meet at Clearbit, which one of their sales reps there. So I entered in his email because he has a great full profile. And we'll notice that I get the resource. However, in Segment, I'm then also going to be able to see that this person came in, they downloaded a resource. I can then also see that Clearbit sent me back an entire profile view of this person. Now, this has a lot of information. Now, I know this is in a code view right now, so maybe not be helpful for you. But all of this code is actually able to be sent downstream into other tools and then be saved and as well be used for our data attribution. Now, if we take basically Segment and Clearbit and we have those things together, if I hop over into Autopilot, you can actually see how all of these attributes are added immediately to his profile. Now, we did set up the custom field mapping inside of Autopilot, so you do have to connect Segment to Autopilot and map all the fields. You do have to connect Autopilot to Salesforce and do all the sales mapping. But you'll notice if I hop over to Salesforce, I can actually see all this information got filled in. All Amit did was give me his email. And within a matter of 2 seconds, all of this information was filled in on his profile. Now, obviously, we have to create all of these fields in these tools. We have to map them all together. If you join my course, you will be taught on how to do the field mapping and how to set that stuff up. But it is going to be something that is really important. Now, we talked about this lead score. So let's get back to the lead scoring compared to just the enrichment. If you want to create a lead score, just like I said, you have to create the fields inside of Salesforce and inside of Autopilot and inside of Segment. So segment will automatically collect it. So we go inside of Salesforce, we go to our Customize tab, we go to Customize the lead record, we can create a new custom field. Now, we're obviously going to name that new custom field lead score, right? Because we want to make sure that this is something that's recognizable. Now, once I've set that up, I'm going to set it up as a number property. I can actually then start to fill out all the information in Salesforce. So once again, we're going to name that lead score. We had to name it lead score 2 just because of obviously the integration. We have the length, and then of course we can set up all the information directly in there. Now, once this new custom field is set up, we need to make sure it's mapped across all of the different objects in Salesforce. If you're not familiar with Salesforce, don't worry about it. You don't have to use Salesforce. But once this has been set up in Salesforce, we can then go over to autopilot. We're going to then need to make sure that we manage our sync. So we'll go set up our new field mapping because we have to map the field from autopilot into Salesforce. So as we go through this, we are going to have to basically go find a new lead score and yep, we'll find that lead score value, and then we'll need to make sure that it's mapped over to Salesforce. So what happens with this integration is as something is sent into autopilot, it is automatically synced over to Salesforce every 15 minutes. So it's just running a constant sync. And that's actually a really good tip to make sure that you understand from marketing automation and Salesforce, understand the sync cycle that these tools go through. Because if you don't, things won't match up all the time. Now, if we jump into autopilot, what we'll notice is that we have created this operational journey that when a field is updated, it basically increases it by a score. So really, really simple. You'll notice that we've done this for every field. So if you're a VP, it's going to increase the score by a certain amount. And they have a really great lead scoring model, very visual editor that you can use, and makes this process nice and simple. So I would highly recommend checking out autopilot if you don't currently use it. Now, obviously, those identity attributes we got from Clearbit are able to be lead scored as well. But the cool thing about autopilot is it's integrated in with segment. So as a segment event happens, it's able to use that to send a new lead score increment into Salesforce as well. So we'll notice that we can increase, but the cool thing is you can also decrease. So as an example, you can set up other types of lead score. You can make all these custom versions of this, which I'll show you in just a second. So we built the lead scoring model, and we're actually tracking these people. So let's jump into Salesforce. Now, this is a view that I have built that's going to show us all the different lead scores of our users, and you can see that they're now qualified. We have made it so that when somebody hits that 150 mark, we change the lead status to qualified, and it shows us all this information. Now, let's look at my lead record. Now, not only does it have my information on here, most of this has already been filled in by Clearbit Enrichment, but we'll also notice that I have the lead score of 120. Now, this lead score is really, really powerful, helps us send good leads to sales reps and things like that. But another thing that's interesting is that you can also track the actions people do in your product and then update fields to show you basically a tally counter in Salesforce. So one of the things that you'll notice on there is we have the viewed product count. We also have previewed artwork count, and then as well as how many times did they view quote step 1. Now, this is important because as a sales rep, this person hasn't submitted an order. And if I need to track something that they're doing in the funnel, I can basically connect the segment event to increase this value every time it happens in Salesforce so I can have a better understanding of what the customer is doing. Once again, like I said earlier on, this is about creating great customer experiences. And if you can have good data, you can create those great customer experiences. Now, we created a lead scoring model. Let me know if you have any questions. I know we went fast, but I don't have a lot of time, and I want to give you a lot of value in this webinar. So definitely make sure that you check that stuff out. Now, we've accomplished lead scoring. We're done with that one. We can move on to the next thing. Now, the lead scoring really, really helped the organization identify who their customers were. We increased the average contract value greatly there. The bigger the contracts are, the better the business is doing. Now, let's move on to the personalized journey. Obviously, I get all of these leads I can distribute to my sales reps, but now I need to talk to all of the people that aren't going to the sales reps in a very personal way. Not only do we want to make sure that we talk to them in a personalized way, but we obviously create a journey that is going to tailor to them. So let's kind of jump into this. Now, we needed to turn hundreds of leads into SQLs, right? We needed to obviously nurture those MQLs to the best of our ability, so that way the sales reps could obviously qualify them and get them in the funnel. Now, before you ever start going and doing this in automation tools, what you need to ultimately do is actually build this out in some tool like Real-Time Board. Real-Time Board is one of our favorites. Some people use Lucid Chart and things like that. I don't care if you use a dry erase board. Just make sure you have a plan before you get started. Understand where the customers come in from, and then understand the messaging you're going to send to them after that. And make sure that you put this all in one place, because you don't want somebody to wind up in 3 separate automations and then get 26 emails in 1 week. It's a bad customer experience. So make sure you think this stuff out, you diagram it all out, and then understand when the nurture sequence ends and you can put them in your newsletter. You don't need to have people in a nurture sequence for 2 years. That's just stupid. Nurture people for a couple weeks and move on. Put them in the newsletter. Hopefully you have a good newsletter strategy, but don't worry about day 97 nurture. Like that's just really long. But don't get me wrong. If you sell airport or like airplanes, maybe you got to worry about a day 97 nurture. But in most companies, your sales cycle is like 30 days. So, but if you're selling $200,000 contracts like me, just set up some tasks in Salesforce. You don't need an automated journey to be able to do that stuff. Now, once you've come up with your plan, let's basically show you how you can build some of this stuff inside of Autopilot. Now, if you go into any marketing automation tool, you can obviously build this kind of cool stuff. But what we want to do in this case is we get all of these new leads coming into the system, and we want to collect more customer information about them. So as they enter, they wind up in this cool segment, they get added to a list. Now, we do progressive profiling here on everybody. So the first email you get is going to basically ask you what your role is. Clearbit only enriches around 20% of our records. So as you get this email, it's like, are you a designer? Are you a business owner? What do you actually do? Now, once they click on that button, they will be taken to our website. But because we use UTMs, we're actually able to track all this information. So the UTM tells us who they are, what type of business, what type of role are they. That information gets passed into, obviously, Google Analytics, which is very, very valuable to see the UTMs that people have with their roles in Google Analytics. But this data also goes into Segment and can be pumped downstream. Now, we've created a separate journey in Autopilot, so it looks for anybody who visits that page. So if that page has that URL and then these specific UTMs, what we then want to basically be able to do is add that value to a field. So because in Autopilot and in Salesforce, I want to know if you're an apparel designer. So if you click that link in that email, you're going to go to the website. It's then going to basically update a field inside of Autopilot, which will then also update that field inside of Salesforce. Now, let me show you exactly how this works. And this is a really, really great program. I highly recommend that you steal this and use it. We roll this out on a lot of our clients. It really helps us understand who they are. It also allows us to basically say, hey, what is your favorite whatever? You answer that question, you get added to a new automation journey. And ask more questions and then obviously splinter it off. So something to definitely use when you have a lot of leads. Now, let's show you how this would actually work on their website. Probably come to one of these t-shirt download things, you enter in your email. Keep it really, really simple, right? You're gonna fill this stuff out, you're super happy, you get your resource, you download that thing, and you're like, whatever, I'm moving on. However, you get an email in your inbox, it's like, welcome to our email list, what best describes your current role? You're like, hey, I'm a business owner, I'm a CEO, and then you immediately go to the website. You notice we have a little pop-up that says, hey, thanks so much for responding, we appreciate the fact that you did this. Now, obviously, why am I progressively profiling? Well, I need to personalize these email journeys. So as people are filling this out and simply clicking a button, they're heading to the website, they get their free resource, and everything's fine. But the next thing that they get is when we send out our newsletter or we send out an automation flow, we can actually tailor that email to them. So as an example, we want to make sure that we send resources which will be helpful to certain personas. So if you're a graphic designer, well, you might need help writing your product descriptions. You're a graphic designer, you're not a copywriter. So like you may want to send content, obviously, which is helpful for them. As an example, send them more design resources and things like that. But when you build out your personas, you should also think about what are the fears that they have? What are the things that they lack from an experience perspective? What are the things that they actually want? And then create your journeys around that. And this is going to be something that helps a graphic designer better write product descriptions, something they may be interested in. You also notice we have designer and apparel. So as an example, how do they price like a pro? Right? As a CEO, I'm really good at pricing. I'm great in Excel. But as an apparel company designer, I don't know how to do pricing, right? So I might want to be learning this stuff as I advance through my career. So this can be something that's helpful. And next, as a business owner, obviously, pro tips for designing quality t-shirts on a budget. As a CEO, I care about cutting costs. I care about making money. So I'm obviously going to be interested in this article. So by simply setting up this type of journey to do progressive profiling, I'm able to provide a much better experience to my email subscribers, which means that my open rates go up, my click-through rates go up, and my unsubscribes go down. And people stay on my list a lot longer. If we send everybody an email as if they're Joe, everybody's just going to unsubscribe. So you've got to take this to the next level, and you really have to do a good job. Now, we've accomplished the personalized journeys. We showed you a quick progressive profiling hack that you can use today to get it done. In my course, though, I show two other ways that you can accomplish this that are really, really cool. And they're just basically built on pop-ups that happen on your website. So something you should definitely check out. Now, the next thing that we need to do is go improve reporting. Now, I'm actually going to use a couple things that we learned from the past two things there to really help us out. So let's kind of talk about this. we need to create an analytics integration to give leadership team more data about what the customer is doing. So we obviously need to track a bunch of information and tell them what's going on and who's actually doing it. Now, let's go back to the progressive profiling thing we just built. Like I said, you go to this web page, you load up this URL, and if it has these specific UTM parameters on it, it's going to update the field to basically say that you're an apparel company owner. Not only does it say that in autopilot, so I can do marketing automation, but it also says that inside of Salesforce, helps the sales reps. And what I can also do is send an event into Segment. And then, of course, Segment powers all of my other tools as well. So I can now see this data in Amplitude, I can see it in Kissmetrics, I can see it anywhere else. Now, this is sent in as an event. Basically, they answer the role survey, so we can measure this over time. But it also saves it with these people's profiles. And I can look at other events and basically understand what's going on. So let's jump into Amplitude really quick. This is their event segmentation report. And I can basically say, show me the people that answered this survey. And then I want you to group them by the actual role they responded with. So I can actually understand the people that are coming to my website, filling this out. What are the roles that they are answering in there? Now, you can do this in different graphs and things like that, but probably a bar chart is going to be the most effective. And what we can very quickly see is that we can see the propensity of people answering those types of questions across the entire swath. So as an example, I'm not going to tell you what customers these are because that's a little confidential, but you can see that there is one group all the way at the bottom that nobody fills out. There's also another group that's very low, and we can see some of these communities are together, but there's two primary personas which are really taking advantage of the site, filling out this information and obviously doing it. Now, one thing I want you to understand, this doesn't mean that everybody who comes to the site fits inside of these persona buckets. It just means that the people that are answering these surveys are filling out these persona buckets. Now, they're pretty much a one-to-one match, but once again, you have to look at your traffic coming to your website slightly separate of the traffic that's taking advantage of your emails. Obviously going to be two different types of cohorts. Now, we can better understand what customers are doing, but we can also make better business decisions. Now, there's a free contest that RealThread offers on their website. So you come to the site, you get hit with this pop-up, and it says, hey, you can win 36 free t-shirts today. Fill out the email, things like that. Now, we have to ask ourselves a question. 36 free t-shirts, that's a lot of money. I mean, when you think about 36 times 5, right, that adds up pretty quickly. We're giving away $200 at least in t-shirts and custom printing. Now, not only are we giving away the shirts, we got to pay for shipping, we got to pay for the marketer to promote that campaign, we've got to pay for the designers to basically make the shirt for the person, we've got to pay for the operations people. All said and done, I mean, this is a $350 cost that we could be pushing out the door every month, but not converting anybody. Now, what we wanted to understand is the people who are filling this out, what segment are they in? Are we getting this from the HR people? Are we getting this from the business owners? Is this coming from the apparel companies? Now, because we built this progressive profiling, I could send the data from Autopilot to Salesforce, which is great, but I could also send the data from Autopilot to Segment, and then Segment send it into the rest of our tools. Now, like I said, Amplitude gives us one view of the world. Kissmetrics gives us another one. So let's hop over into Kissmetrics and actually build this out in there. Now, with the Kissmetrics metrics, I can look at a specific event, and then I can look at all of the properties associated with that user. So it doesn't mean that that event that came in, free t-shirt contest, actually had that role. Now, I can obviously say, hey, only show it if people have that role in existence. And as I go set up the report inside of here, I can basically see all the people that entered the free contest, and then also build that by the dimension of who actually answered the role question as well. So we can see over a period of time how many people answered that survey, but we can also see apparel company owners are entering it by far. Business owners are entering it by far. And then I can't read other is as well. And we'll notice that human resources is not entering this contest. Now, this obviously gives us an idea that, one, human resources maybe doesn't care about the 36 free t-shirts, but if human resources is a persona we're going after, well, we're not getting a lot of people from that persona in the first place. So we probably need to focus more of our marketing efforts on attracting more of that persona. Meanwhile, apparel company owners, we get them all the time. Like, we are definitely dominating out of all of the different personas we have, and we're getting a lot of those people. So by having this improved reporting, you can make smarter business decisions and do effective things inside of your company. So definitely recommend to start progressive profiling, but also make sure that this data can wind up everywhere so you can really take advantage of your analytics. Now, we talked about increasing the lead score, we talked about personalized nurture, and we talked about reporting. Now, the goal is to increase the new customer conversion rate. And I can tell you this, we definitely increased the new customer conversion rate. We increased the funnel. We made sure that there was more leads coming down the funnel. And another great thing is we increased the contract value. So the average order size also increased. And why was that? Well, a lot of it had to do with the lead scoring. We could finally identify the people that were going to pay us $5,000 for a t-shirt or $20,000 for a t-shirt order. We could identify those good people. So by making sure that we could see the good people, we were able to get bigger contracts. By personalizing those journeys, we were able to increase the conversion rate, not only at the top of the funnel, but also at the bottom of the funnel. And because we had better reporting and better metrics, we could actually tell you all of these metrics that we just went through. We could actually tell that we increased these metrics. So definitely a game changer for this business. Now, like I said, I'm going to be launching a course on November 13th. This is going to be a badass course. I have spent over 100 hours working on this thing. I'm still working through this weekend to do reshoots because I care so much about quality, and I want to make sure this is the best freaking course you ever take in your life. Now, I'm going to talk about how you can optimize your MarTech stack, but we're going to talk about how do you discover new tools, how do you compare them to make sure that you're choosing the right one, how do you build out a budget. We're also going to talk about the taxonomy and schema you need to build before you ever do these integrations so you can be a much more effective marketer. We're also going to walk through how do you set up Segment, how do you set up Clearbit, how do you set up a Tag Manager on your site to make sure that you can get these things going. Now, I'm not going to get into the developer crazy focus on this. I'm not going to be writing JavaScript on screen. I'm not going to be writing server-side code, but I am going to explain how these things work. And as a marketer, that's really what you need to learn. Is it's not about actually doing the work. It's about understanding how it all works so you can manage and lead people so they can accomplish the work as well. The reason why I've been successful in my career is not because I did all the execution myself. It's because I understood how the practitioners did it, and I was able to write a strategy which effectively used my resources, and I could accomplish all of these other things. Now, inside of the course, obviously, we're going to talk about how do you do this lead scoring, how do you do this progressive profiling, and ultimately, how do you use the CRM to kick butt. Now, if you want to join that course, like I said, effandamazing.com/CXL webinar, you'll be able to access the course through there. Share that on Twitter right now. Don't waste time. Put it on LinkedIn. Put it on Facebook. I'd love to see you inside that course. Now, if you have real questions, feel free to email me at dan@effandamazing.com. Happy to help you out, answer any questions you have. If I can find availability, happy to schedule maybe a 15-minute call to see if something's working for you or not working for you. If you are a big business, we'd love to do a free consult, but what I care about right now is obviously thanking you for coming and checking out this webinar. It means a lot to me that all of you are here, so really, really helpful that you came to see me, and I do appreciate you taking the time out of your day. Now, I'd love to know if you have any questions. Drop them in the chat box so I can answer them. Definitely want to be able to get to some of the questions. So we have Jamal who asked the question, any thoughts on lead scoring for info product sales? How effective is email open, landing page view, video view, then feeding back a trigger to certain email drop? Great question. So one, I will be clear that I am not an expert in info product sales. Now, I am looking for experts in info product sales because I am focused on building some of my info products. Now, what I can tell you is that no matter what business that you're in, you do need to be using lead scoring and engagement scoring and churn scoring. And the reason why I say that is obviously you can change somebody's advertising campaign based upon an engagement or lead score. So as an example, you have a high value person who could get value from your product. They're engaged, but they haven't purchased yet. You can see that through a lead score and an engagement score. Well, instead of having them in the $10 a day Facebook campaign, you put them in the $150 a day Facebook campaign. And you also put them in the Facebook campaign where you have certain videos. You also put them in the LinkedIn audiences and things like that. You get way more aggressive with your advertising towards that person, and you get way more aggressive towards the campaigns you put in. Meanwhile, if you have Joe Schmo over here who is not very engaged, he doesn't really seem to care about your product, he's not an important person in the ecosystem, well, you maybe leave him in that $10 a day Facebook advertising one because you don't want to invest as much in him because he's not going to join your mastermind. So I would highly recommend using this stuff. And to follow on the question, like you said, feeding back into certain email drops, absolutely. If you need to get a high roller into a campaign, send them great discounts and send them great emails, because if you can get that first purchase, you can get that second and third purchase. But that first purchase, as we all know, is going to probably be the hardest. Now, looking forward to some questions. Somebody put one in the QA. Dave, I'm really, really sorry, but you have to re-ask that question in the webinar chat just because I want to make sure that I can answer it correctly, and that's what I was told to do. So, Dave, if you could do that, it'd be super helpful. I will answer the question even though I don't want to. Is autopilot meant for smaller organizations, and is your stack meant for smaller orgs as well? Absolutely. And I'll explain a little bit about this. So one, Segment can be free up to 1,000 monthly tracked users, but it actually is much cheaper to go with Segment than to pay a bunch of developers to write out 16 different syntaxes. Because with Segment, you write one integration. Thank you for adding it to the next box. You write one integration. You write it in analytics.js, and now that one integration works with 25 or 300 different tools. However, if you're integrating with Google Analytics on its own, well, when somebody signs up, you need to send an event there. If you have Kissmetrics, well, you need to write it in their syntax and their language, send an event there. And if you have Amplitude, you need to do it in there. You got HubSpot, you need to do it in there. You get the point. Now you're managing all of these different code bases. So Segment is actually a huge cost saver. We're talking 80% discount compared to the amount of development time that you would spend. Most people get caught up in the fact they're like, oh, I'm going to spend $400 a month in this. Yeah, but you're going to save about $1,600 a month on development. So shut up and move on. Now, tools like Clearbit do have a free tier, so really, really good stuff there. It will enrich for what you can. It's $99 for $2,500 or 2,500 enrichments a month, so definitely still really good there. Another one is obviously Amplitude. It is free for up to 10 million events, so highly recommend it. Autopilot is actually pretty fairly priced. They did recently change their pricing program. If you leverage the Salesforce integration, it is a little more expensive. Small hack, don't integrate with Salesforce if you're cheap. Take Autopilot, connect it to Zapier, have Zapier create your new leads in Salesforce, have Zapier do the piping between the two, and you're basically solved your problem. You saved yourself $500 a month. You can thank me with a little card in the mail for Christmas. Now, Autopilot does have good pricing. If you want to do awesome marketing automation, send text messages, send postcards, send emails, have pop-ups on your website, and then as well as be able to send data into Segment, send data into Zapier, Autopilot is amazing. Like, honestly, I rep them all the time. Now, I will say this. If you are an organization doing like $500 million a year and you've got 2.4 million people on your email list, maybe not the right tool, okay? It's not big company kind of stuff. It is small and medium-sized businesses that do best on that. And when I say medium-sized businesses, I'm talking about companies less than 100 million. If you're a $100 million business, Autopilot can still work for you. You just got to know how to use it. Email me. I'll help you out. I got all these cool resources and things like that. Another one is Kissmetrics. Kissmetrics can be expensive. It starts like $500 a month, but just use Amplitude. You'll be happy. Zapier is $20 or $49 a month, so really not all expensive. So most of the tools I talked about are fairly cheap. And I'm not going to lie, like, I make good money, but I like to save money. Like, so I'm always looking for the way to hack a system to save 50 bucks. Like, that's just how I am. I'd rather spend that $50 on like a bottle of wine than spend it on some SaaS company, right? Just how I look at things. Sorry. But either way, it is definitely a good stack. Now, JR asked the next question. What are my thoughts on Google Data Studio for reporting, blended data visualizations? I love Google Data Studio. Data Studio is awesome. So I highly recommend using it, but it does provide me limitations. My big problem in life is the fact that I want to know who my customer is. I want to track their lifetime value. I want to know their repeat purchase rate. I want to be able to know that Joe was the one who did this. And I want to know that Sally was the one who paid. I want to see this information, and then I want to be able to say, okay, I know Sally came from Google, or excuse me, I know she came from Google Ads. Sally came from Google Ads. She purchased, but her lifetime value at this point is $600. So I can truly see my return on ad spend compared to being like, I spent $96 on a lead. They purchased at a $10 price. Well, that's all we can track. So that's the only reason why I don't use Google Data Studio for everything. I use a lot of other tools to be able to provide that data, but I do love Data Studio. If you need any help, go check out our blog. We have some really, really good stuff. Mike and Hussein on my team spend a lot of time in Data Studio. We build a lot of dashboards, so I do love that tool. Carl, great question. Any thoughts? I put answered live on that one. Any thought how to improve a delivery service company marketing strategy with huge volumes of visitors like US Post just starting out on MarTech? So I don't understand the question. Any thoughts on how to improve a delivery service? So you run a delivery service is what I'm making the assumption. And I'm assuming you deliver things like an Uber? Like, give me a better idea. Where do you start? Where you start is you write dan@fnamazing.com in an email, and you shoot me some information with like some links. I can't obviously visit the links in this webinar, but I will tell you this. When I think about a delivery service, I think about it as a local business. So you don't want to be doing national marketing. You want to be focused on a region. And I would focus specifically on a very small area of your marketing and try to build some density in that. Because if somebody's using your delivery service, chances are somebody else local will be using that delivery service as well. Visitors like US Post, just starting out MarTech. And I would keep your stack simple. One, Salesforce is a great tool. It can be very expensive. I recommend it to most organizations because it has the most integrations out of any of the CRMs. So that's a big reason why I recommend it, is integrations are really simple. It does everything you need it to do, and everybody integrates with it. So really, really powerful. But from a marketing strategy perspective, I mean, I don't know where to start. I would say start cheap, content marketing, SEO, outbound sales. Don't try to spend a bunch of money on Google AdWords yet. Don't go spend a bunch of money on Facebook ads yet. Figure out your product market fit before you really get going. Now, let me know if you have any more questions. Happy to answer some of them. Yeah, no, absolutely. You're welcome. So let me know if you have any questions. More than happy to answer them. Like I said, go to effandamazing.com/CXL webinar to go check out the course. We want you to take that online class. It will be really, really helpful for you and your friends. So share it with your buddies. But if you do have questions, email me at dan@effandamazing.com. We will send out these slides and the recording, so it'll be in your inbox in a couple of days. It's Friday, so give us some time. We want to enjoy our weekend too. Jamal, you're welcome. I'm very happy to help you out. But if we don't have any more questions in the next 6 seconds, I'm going to end the webinar, and then I'm going to make sure that you get this recording. So once again, thank you very much. My name is Dan McGaugh. Go check out my course at effandamazing.com/CXL webinar. Oh, I got another question from Dave. I knew a question would come in that 6 seconds. Have you built stacks with other marketing automation platforms? Absolutely. So we've used a ton of them, everything from Pardot, Marketo. I don't like Eloqua. I will say that. I'm not a big fan of Marketo, but we know how to use it. We've used HubSpot. We used ActiveCampaign, amongst a bunch of other automation tools. I just really like autopilot. But I have definitely worked with a bunch. Michael Shear on my team has worked with dozens of the tools, and that's kind of the industry that we're in. We're here to know the tools and help our customers. So yeah, we definitely have worked with a lot of other ones. So, well, either way, thank you everybody for being here. I appreciate taking the time out of your day. We'll get that out, and then we'll chat with you all soon. Bye-bye.